Developments in the ongoing legal battle between the Trump administration and a federal judge in the case of a fast-track deportation of alleged Venezuelan gang members. So, where this story is concerned, here's your headline. The DOJ once again doubling down to the judge. In fact, Attorney General Pam Bondi and top DOJ officials arguing the removals complied with the law and safeguarded Americans against members of a foreign terrorist organization. Borders Czar Tom Homan also doubling down on justifying those fast-track deportations. Here's what he told CBS News' Liliet Luciano.
I've been told by the highest levels of ICE, the men and women of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, who built that manifest, who went through each of these files, spent hundreds and hundreds of hours investigating each and every one of these people, that they are in fact, every one of them, a member of TDA.
How do you know they are all members? Have you seen that evidence?
I have not drilled down every file. Again, I'm trusting the men and women who do this for a living.
That from the Borders Czar. Well, let's drill down with CBS News Justice reporter Jake Rosen. Jake, the Trump administration says it did not defy the judge. How do they make this defense?
Right, and in a court filing last night that was 14 pages, signed by Attorney General Pam Bondi and top Department of Justice leadership, it argued a couple of things. It said that the judge's ordered no more removals, to quote them, of migrants. Now, that's because these migrants and alleged Tren de Aragua gang members had already been removed. That's one point they make. Another is that once the plane got outside of U.S. airspace at 7:25 p.m. last Saturday, that President Trump had the authority under just his Article 2 power as president, that he was able to order these military planes wherever he wanted, and that it didn't matter who was on them or what Judge Boasberg was trying to do, simply that he can direct planes as he sees fit. This all really comes down to the semantics of what Judge Boasberg meant, and which a Department of Justice lawyer agreed with him on, which is that about 30 minutes before these planes left U.S. airspace, he ordered verbally in court, in a verbal order from the bench, that these planes need to be turned around. A Department of Justice attorney said in court on Friday that he heard that as immediate, he understood it as immediate, and that he relayed that to the White House, which then blew off his order.
So what are his options right now that he's got that response from the DOJ?
Well, the plaintiffs in the case, so the ACLU and the attorneys representing an unknown number of people who are alleged Tren de Aragua gang members who are still here in the United States, have until Friday to answer the government's filing last night, basically claiming that they were not in the wrong. They have not disregarded anything Boasberg has ordered. They will probably make the case, as they have in multiple court hearings across the circuit court and in Judge Boasberg's courtroom, that that order was binding and that they had a responsibility to turn those planes around, and that in not doing so, they're in contempt of court. The plaintiffs have not filed a motion to hold the government in contempt yet. That certainly could be the next steps of all of this, and how that would be enforced is certainly complicated, because any steps to hold any member of the Department of Justice in contempt of court would have to be arranged and situated and done by the Department of Justice.
All right, so let's put that aside, and now let's pivot over to an executive order, one that one analyst called, quote, a 5-alarm fire in preserving election integrity. What's the order?
Well, this is an executive order signed by Trump that delivers, at least in theory, on a lot of things that Donald Trump promised on the campaign trail. Some of that is an intention to try to accomplish same-day voting, or at least have all votes turned in by Election Day. As we know, there are about 18 states and one territory, I believe, that allow for ballots to be postmarked before they are actually submitted. So as long as they're postmarked before Election Day, they can be received afterwards. Donald Trump wants to stop that. In addition, he wants to make sure that you have to provide citizenship documents for when you register to vote. Read, just for our viewers' awareness, you cannot vote in a federal election if you are not a citizen, but that is done at the state level. This would require some kind of federal ID, like a passport, to be used to register to vote in a federal election. In addition to that, any state that uses a QR code, so if you use a tablet to vote, which a number of states allow you to do, which then prints out your results for someone to review, and then a QR code to scan it to cross-check those results, those would also be banned. Many of these are likely unconstitutional and will be struck down by courts once these officially get challenged in court. That has not yet happened, but this is certainly Donald Trump's intention to control federal elections, which he laid out over 18 months of campaign rallies.
More attorneys yet to sound off and more courtrooms. We know you're on top of it. Jake Rosen, always great to talk to you.